Start with the name of the one who calls hearts from darkness into light, for it is from that eternal whisper that the true child of God is born. The first mark of such a soul is not perfection but pursuit, the relentless choice of light over comfort, truth over ease, and obedience over applause. The world offers 1,000 beds of soft deceit, where compromise feels gentle and conviction feels heavy. But the true child of God cannot rest there. Something within them trembles when falsehood feels convenient. They hear, faint yet unmistakable, the voice that says, "This is the way, walk in it." And though the path is narrow and the stones bruise their feet, they walk on. Their loyalty is not to pleasure, not to popularity, but to the quiet sovereignty of the one who sees in secret. This heart is not born holy. It is remade daily in the furnace of surrender. Every dawn becomes a question: will I choose the easy dusk of self, or the bright pain of light? And every time the child of God answers rightly, grace chisels a little more of heaven into the clay of their being. They learn that light is not always warmth. Sometimes it burns. It exposes hidden pride, whispers of envy, the silent idols that have made nests within. Yet they do not flee. They stand, trembling but trusting, knowing that even the fire that hurts is the fire that heals. The world misunderstands this kind of light. To those who live by shadows, the brightness of conviction looks like cruelty, and the refusal to bend seems arrogance. But the child of God bends only to love, and bows only to truth. They have tasted the strange joy that comes when one gives up the right to be comfortable and gains, instead, the right to be clean. Their peace is not built upon the approval of men, but upon the smile of heaven. And when the storms of life rage, and comfort is stripped away, they find within a calm not of this world, because they are anchored not in circumstance, but in the character of God. They know that light often demands loneliness. There are nights when obedience feels like exile, when doing the right thing means walking alone. But the child of God has learned that solitude with God is better than fellowship with falsehood. They carry within them a homesickness for eternity, and the world, with all its glittering distractions, cannot quiet that ache. They see what others do not see, that life is not measured by ease but by alignment, not by possessions but by purity, not by how softly one walks, but by how steadfastly one stands. Their heart, once restless, now finds rhythm in divine purpose. They become a living lamp, fragile but aflame. Their light is not for show, it is for witness. It spills quietly into dark corners where fear reigns. It warms broken souls who forgot that goodness still breathes in the world. And though they often doubt their worthiness, though they stumble and rise again, they never lose sight of the flame entrusted to them. For they know that being a child of God is not about shining perfectly, but about refusing to let the darkness win. To choose light over comfort means saying yes to transformation, even when it hurts. It means giving God permission to dismantle every counterfeit refuge, the approval of others, the illusion of control, the safety of silence. It is allowing Him to expose the cracks, not to shame, but to fill them with His strength. The true child of God does not hide their weakness. They bring it into the open, where grace can do its quiet work. They understand that growth is not glamorous. It is often made of tears and trust, of losing what once felt safe to gain what is truly eternal. And yet, for all its struggle, this life is radiant. There is an unmistakable serenity in one who has chosen the light. You see it in their eyes, the calm of one who knows their Redeemer lives, the gentleness of one who has forgiven much and been forgiven more. Their joy is not loud, but deep. It does not depend on seasons or circumstances. It flows from a secret communion, from the knowledge that they are known, loved, and guarded by the one who made the stars. Such a heart becomes both battlefield and beacon. It wars daily against the pull of the world, yet it glows with quiet victory. It does not always win easily, but it never surrenders. The true child of God may falter, may fear, may even fall, but the light within them cannot die. It is the mark of divine adoption, the evidence of grace unbreakable. And so, even in the valley, even when faith feels faint, they rise again, drawn not by willpower, but by love, In every age, such souls are rare. They are not loud, they do not demand recognition. But the world is secretly sustained by their prayers, their integrity, their steadfastness. For though they are few, they shine enough for many. And the day will come when every flicker of light they carried through the storm will blaze in the full dawn of glory, and it will be known that the heart that chose light over comfort was, all along, the heart that chose God Himself. The second trait of a true child of God is the soul that loves truth more than applause. This is the soul that would rather be right with God than popular with men. It is a strange and lonely path, for in every generation, truth has been both sought and shunned, welcomed when it comforts, crucified when it confronts. But the true child of God does not follow truth because it pleases them. They follow it because it frees them. In a world where opinions are currency and flattery buys influence, this soul walks against the tide. They understand that truth is not a weapon to wound, but a light to heal. It pierces falsehood, yet it does so with mercy. To love truth more than applause is to live without masks, to stand before God uncovered, even when that means being misunderstood by men. The applause of the crowd is sweet but fleeting. It echoes for a moment and dies in the wind. But truth endures, even when it whispers alone. The child of God knows this, and so they build their life not on applause, but on authenticity. Such a person learns early that truth is costly. It costs comfort, convenience, sometimes even companionship. Yet, in surrendering those, they find something deeper. Peace without performance, joy without pretending. Their hearts are not addicted to being seen, they are content to be known. And though the world rewards those who perform righteousness for spectacle, the true child of God practices it in silence, where only the gaze of heaven falls. They have no need to decorate their faith for attention, for their worth is not drawn from how many approve, but from the one who declares them beloved. The love of truth transforms their speech. They do not twist words to win arguments, they use them to restore what is broken. When they speak, there is a quiet weight in their voice, for it is shaped not by pride but by purity. They do not gossip, they do not flatter falsely, they do not pretend agreement where their spirit protests. Their yes means yes, and their no means no. And though this simplicity may cost them friends, it earns them something far greater: credibility before God. To love truth more than applause also means learning to confront oneself. The hardest lies to face are the ones we tell in silence, the excuses that hide fear, the half-truths that justify compromise, the gentle self-deceptions that keep us comfortable. The true child of God has made peace with discomfort. They would rather be painfully honest than peacefully false. They have learned that every time they allow truth to wound, it also heals. It breaks what is false so that what is real can live. And when they see deceit in the world, they grieve more than they judge. They understand that falsehood is not just evil, it is bondage. It enslaves hearts in illusions of safety and self. So, when they defend truth, they do not do so with arrogance but with compassion. They know that truth without love can bruise, and love without truth can blind. Therefore, they carry both in balance, like twin wings that lift them closer to heaven. Applause, on the other hand, is a fickle god. It demands endless sacrifices. Your peace, your conviction, your silence when you should speak. It teaches you to smile while shrinking inside, to chase validation like a shadow you can never hold. But the true child of God has seen through this illusion. They know that the approval of men is a mirage. By the time you reach it, it has already moved. So, they set their eyes higher, on the eternal audience of one. They live not to be celebrated but to be faithful. Sometimes this love of truth isolates them. The world grows wary of those who refuse to pretend. They are called stubborn, self-righteous, or unbending. But deep inside, they carry a serenity that no criticism can shake. For they have learned the art of standing still when the crowd sways. They have discovered that integrity is not found in being liked, but in being aligned with what is holy, what is timeless, what is true. And though their reward seems delayed, it is certain. The applause of heaven is not loud but lasting. It is not given in noise but in nearness. One day, when all lies have turned to dust, the soul that clung to truth will shine like the morning. Every sacrifice of honesty, every moment they stood alone for what was right, will be remembered in eternity. For the kingdom of God is built not on the flattery of crowds, but on the faithfulness of the few who refuse to trade truth for approval. To love truth more than applause, then, is not merely a moral stance. It is a declaration of allegiance. It says, I belong not to the world that changes, but to the word that never does. It is the vow of one who understands that applause fades but truth endures forever. The child of God, therefore, walks through this life unmasked, unswayed, and unafraid. Not because they are proud, but because they are free. They have chosen the eternal over the immediate, the real over the glamorous, the voice of God over the cheer of men. And in that quiet, costly choice, heaven finds its reflection upon the earth. This forgiveness is not a soft sentiment or a gentle suggestion. It is a revolution of the heart. The world teaches that forgiveness is weakness, that it is surrender to those who wronged us, but the child of God knows it is the very strength of heaven itself. To forgive beyond reason is to mirror the mercy that saved us, the mercy that saw our rebellion and called us beloved still. It is not logical. It is not fair. And yet it is divine. The true child of God carries the memory of having been forgiven. Deep within their soul lies the remembrance of how grace found them in their lowest hour, how love embraced them when they least deserved it. That memory humbles them. It breaks pride's hard shell and teaches compassion in its purest form. They cannot hold grudges long, for the one who lives within them does not. They may weep from betrayal, bleed from injustice, but their heart cannot stay bitter. It was never built to hold poison. Forgiveness becomes not an act, but a nature, because the spirit of the forgiver dwells in them. To forgive beyond reason is not to forget pain, nor to excuse evil. It is to choose freedom over bondage. Resentment is a prison, invisible but suffocating. It whispers that revenge will heal, that justice will satisfy. But the heart that yields to hate soon becomes what it hates. The child of God understands this subtle decay. They know that unforgiveness corrodes the soul far more than it punishes the offender. So, even when tears fall and wounds still ache, they whisper, I release. Not because the other deserves it, but because their own peace demands it. And there is a strange paradox in this kind of mercy. It feels like loss but becomes victory. Each time they forgive, they lose a piece of pride but gain a piece of heaven. Each act of letting go makes their heart lighter, their faith stronger. It is as if God Himself breathes through their surrender. For forgiveness, in its truest form, is not the act of ignoring pain. It is the act of transforming it. The wound that could have become a scar of bitterness becomes instead a window through which grace shines. To forgive beyond reason is to love without balance. It is to give when no apology has been spoken, to bless when curses have been thrown, to pray for those who plotted pain. The world calls this madness. Haven calls it maturity. It is not the reaction of emotion but the decision of spirit. The child of God forgives not because they feel like it, but because they have been commanded by love itself. They understand that the weight of unforgiveness cannot coexist with the wings of faith. One must fall for the other to rise. And yet, this journey is not easy. The heart resists. The flesh cries out for fairness. Memories replay in the night, urging vengeance, feeding pride. But then comes the quiet voice of God, gentle yet piercing, reminding them of a hill called Calvary, where innocence bore the sins of the guilty, where the pure was punished for the impure, where forgiveness was written in blood. And in that remembrance, the impossible becomes possible again. The same grace that flowed from the cross begins to flow through them. The true child of God learns that forgiveness is not a single moment. It is a discipline of eternity. Some wounds take days to heal, some years, some lifetimes. But with each act of surrender, the grip of pain weakens. And where once anger ruled, compassion begins to bloom. They start to see their offenders not as enemies, but as broken souls, as mirrors of their own need for grace. For to forgive beyond reason is also to see beyond reason. To see through heaven's eyes, where even those who wound us are not beyond redemption. Such forgiveness reshapes the world around them. In families, it rebuilds what pride destroyed. In communities, it breaks the cycle of retaliation. In hearts, it restores joy long forgotten. Wherever the child of God walks, they carry this quiet power to disarm hatred. Their presence becomes a sanctuary of peace, for people sense something different. A love that cannot be provoked, a patience that cannot be explained. And sometimes their forgiveness changes nothing outwardly. The offender may never repent, the wrong may never be made right, the relationship may never be restored, but even then, forgiveness remains holy. It frees the giver, sanctifies the pain, and turns suffering into seed. God takes what was meant for harm and grows compassion from it, humility, empathy, the fruits that feed eternity. The world will never fully understand this kind of heart. It will mock it as naive, call it weakness, call it foolish. But heaven calls it divine resemblance. For every act of forgiveness is a small echo of the cross, a quiet proclamation that evil will not have the final word. The child of God knows that forgiveness is not the denial of justice but its transformation. It takes what is broken and offers it back to God, trusting Him to redeem it in His time. To forgive beyond reason, then, is to live beyond reason. It is to step out of the arithmetic of pain and into the mystery of grace. It is to trade the satisfaction of revenge for the serenity of mercy. It is to bear the likeness of the one who forgave us first, who looked upon our rebellion and said, "Father, forgive them." And in that echo, the child of God finds their truest identity, not as the wounded, but as the redeemed, not as the accuser, but as the forgiven, not as the judge, but as the reflection of the God who heals all things. For the fourth trait of a true child of God is the mind that hungers for holiness. This is not a mind satisfied with mere knowledge, nor a curiosity that only collects ideas. It is an intellect that longs to be pure, a thought, life that seeks to be in harmony with the eternal truth of God. In a world where intellect is often used to build towers that reach towards self, the true child of God bends their mind in worship, not pride. They think deeply not to boast but to behold. This hunger for holiness is not born of fear, nor of obligation. It is born of love. When the heart falls in love with God, the mind follows, yearning to understand the one it adores. The true child of God does not study truth as a scholar studies theory. They pursue it as a lover pursues the beloved. Every question they ask is a prayer. Every discovery a glimpse into the face of the divine. For them, holiness is not a rule book. It is beauty. It is harmony with the mind of God, the alignment of thought with truth itself. To hunger for holiness is to reject the poison of complacency. The world offers distractions disguised as wisdom, half-truths that flatter the ego, philosophies that promise freedom but deliver emptiness. But the child of God is not content with shallow answers. Their spirit hungers for the depth where truth and purity meet. They are not impressed by clever words unless those words carry light. Their mind discerns, not to judge others, but to guard the sacred within. They understand that what the mind entertains, the soul eventually embraces. Therefore, they feed their thoughts with what uplifts, purifies, and reflects eternity. The mind that hungers for holiness is not afraid of questions. It welcomes them. But it also knows where to stop, at the threshold of mystery. The child of God knows that reason is a gift, but not a god. They explore the universe with awe, but bow before its creator. Their humility in knowledge is their crown. For pride in intellect blinds, but reverence in learning illuminates. They do not demand that God fit within the limits of their logic. Instead, they expand their logic to fit within the vastness of God. And yet, this kind of holiness is not separation from reality. It is sanctification within it. The child of God does not flee from the world. They walk through it with renewed vision. Every sunrise becomes scripture, every act of kindness a sermon, every pain a hidden parable. Their mind reads the divine handwriting across all of life. They see God not only in prayer, but in mathematics, not only in sermons, but in the stars, not only in miracles but in the quiet order of creation. Their faith does not shrink the mind, it frees it. It allows thought to breathe eternity. But to hunger for holiness also means to wage war within. The mind is a battlefield where light and shadow wrestle daily. The child of God knows how subtle temptation can be. It does not always come with noise but with suggestion. Doubt whispers, fear imagines, pride disguises itself as insight. Yet, through prayer and discipline, they learn to take every thought captive, to bring even imagination under obedience to truth. This is not tyranny over thought but liberation from deception. A holy mind is not narrow, it is guarded. It is not closed, it is consecrated. Such a mind changes how one sees others. The child of God no longer looks through lenses of judgment or comparison, but of compassion. They perceive sin not with disgust but with grief, error not with arrogance but with patience. Holiness has taught them that understanding is deeper than argument, and wisdom is softer than intellect. Their mind becomes a place of peace, where others find refuge from the storm of criticism. They do not use truth as a weapon but as a bomb. Their thoughts, purified by grace, begin to shape their words, their choices, their very presence. You can sense it when they speak. Their words do not echo vanity but eternity. They are gentle, yet they carry conviction. They listen more than they argue. They build more than they boast. Their intellect no longer seeks victory but clarity, not dominance but light. And in that quiet clarity, the fragrance of holiness spreads. The hunger for holiness also transforms what they desire to learn. They no longer chase information for pride but for transformation. The scriptures become their greatest field of study, not as scholars dissecting a text, but as children gathering bread. They meditate not merely to understand, but to become. The word is not an idea to them, it is a living voice. They invite it to rearrange their thoughts, to reorder their priorities, to cleanse their motives. Every insight becomes an altar, every realization a call to obedience. And as their mind grows in holiness, their peace deepens. The chaos that once ruled their thoughts begins to quiet. They find that holiness is not the absence of thought, but the alignment of thought with truth. They no longer chase answers out of anxiety, but rest in the assurance that God Himself is the ultimate answer. They no longer fear what they cannot understand, for they trust the one who understands all things. In a world intoxicated by cleverness, the mind that hungers for holiness stands apart. It refuses the noise of endless argument, choosing instead the stillness of contemplation. It seeks not to impress but to illuminate, not to conquer but to commune. It believes that wisdom without worship is blindness, and knowledge without love is dust. And so, the true child of God, in loving holiness, learns the secret of divine intelligence, that to think rightly is to love deeply, and to love rightly is to see clearly. Their mind becomes not a throne of pride, but a sanctuary of truth, a place where heaven's thoughts find a home on earth.